Don't ask. Mortimer here, classic case. She came to us via the RSPCA. Now, she's just not had a very, very good start really. She's an imprint, but she's never seen the wild. But she's been really badly handled, badly trained, badly socialised, and as a result of which, she's a whole catalogue of bad habits. Now, she's quite unpredictable and aggressive. And she's injured more members of staff here than any other bird we've got. And she's even managed to mash and maul several World Outpost chief executives in front of large audiences. And she's no respecter of rank either. Not her fault, it's how she was reared. Now, she was also very badly malnourished. She was still very young when we got her, in her first year of life. But she was badly malnourished, and as a result of that, her first supposedly working set of flight feathers had grown in very weak and very brittle, and they'd mostly all snapped off. Now it took about 3 years after we got her, of feeding her a decent well-balanced diet, before she managed to molt out all those useless feather stumps, and before she'd grown in her first working set of flight feathers. So Mortimer here was about 4 years old before she got anything above 3 foot off the ground. The result of that is that Mortimer is now scared of heights, which is a bit of a drag really when you consider the fact that out in the wild, buzzards tend to soar on the thermals up between about 1,000 and 2,000 feet. They'll use their incredible eyesight to home in on anything that's edible to them. And their eyesight's about as good as their eyesight's about as good as it gets during the day, about 8 to 10 times better than yours and mine. There we go. She went through right past that one then. Anyway, they're a bit of an opportunist really, which is a very kind way of saying that they're incredibly lazy and they like to eat dead things. Their favourite form of hunting is to sit on a lamppost next to an A-road or a motorway and to wait for rabbits to get run over. Come on then. Oh, kicking out of that one. Mortimer. So, they're a bit of a scavenger really, so their favourite form of hunting is to sit on a lamppost next to an A-road or a motorway and to wait for rabbits to get run over. Now in places where they're even more common than they are here, such as South Wales, you'll quite literally find them next to the motorway there. They'll be sat on a lamppost waiting for rush hour to dish up breakfast. But he's a white-breasted British barn owl. I stress the white-breasted and the British. That's because in Europe, around 95% of the population of this bird lives in the British Isles. The other 5% lives in western France, Normandy and Brittany. In the rest of Europe you'll find a distinct different subspecies that's known as a dark-breasted barn owl. Now, barn owls have got a global distribution, mainly around the tropics and the subtropics. In fact, they're the most widely distributed type of bird in the world. It's where all barn owls have originated from. It just so happens that over the millennia they've been that successful that they've managed to radiate away from the tropics. The British Isles is the furthest away from the tropics that barn owls get anywhere in the world. And in terms of weather, they're right on the edge here, if you see what I mean. Because the British barn owl, although native to the British Isles, has absolutely no cold weather adaptations whatsoever. So our climate has caused one or two problems, I can tell you that. But wherever you find them in the world, you'll find that they're different subspecies in different regions. They all look slightly different. So the one in Africa is darker in the back and small. Barn owl or kestrel whatsoever. Kestrels hunt that same environment. They just come out and do the day shift with the barn owl's night shift. So for many years, one of the last places where you'd find a permanent meadow-type habitat is next to railroads and motorways. And that's where most people still said in relation to his body size, he doesn't need any bigger than that of the kestrel. What he's got is a big fan of feathers around his face, a bit like the white petals on a daisy. The function of that fan of feathers is the same as our outer ear. It's a feather satellite dish. We call it a facial disc. And it funnels all the sounds into his super sensitive hearing. And his hearing is that sensitive that he can with pinpoint accuracy. This guy here only weighs 9 ounces. That big wingspan. So imagine what happens if a small bird like this is flying next to an A-road or a motorway and all of a sudden it gets hit by this, having the rest of them being killed off in busy traffic. So due to a combination of all those factors I've just been telling you about, the barn owl actually declined very rapidly after the Second World War. To such an extent that around 25 years ago, we the World Outpost stepped in and we did a big practice breeding and release scheme. It's called Buzzards, British breeding and release scheme. And we were the first people to do that kind of thing. It was very, very novel. So we managed to reintroduce it back into areas where there were no barns, where there was good habitat, plenty of spaces like. And in those areas, the descendants of those barn houses we put back there where we did are actually still there, still thriving. We knew all of the work. It was very well publicised. People read about what we did. It must have took a toll, as I was saying. We were the first to do it. And it must have took a toll because people read about it. I thought it was such a good idea that other people started releasing barn houses their own back, unbeknownst to us, unfortunately. And unfortunately, an awful lot of barn houses, with the best of intentions, got released into areas that weren't suitable for them. So those birds never made it. So they've got a very spectacular story to tell us. The story of the European eagle owls from the late 1950s and the early 1960s who were critically endangered with extinction. There was a population survey done, and it was found that in mainland Europe, they were extinct, and there was a remnant population of between 60 and 70 pairs in Sweden. Now, the reason why they'd gone into such a massive decline was the same old story. It was habitat loss. Now, their habitat are the big northern pine forests in Europe, places like the Black Forest in Germany, also places like Finland, Sweden, and Norway. And those forests had been destroyed by industrial pollution causing acid rain. And now since those days, the industries of Britain and Europe have had to clean up their emissions act because we're now by law no longer allowed to needlessly pollute the environment. And this has meant that acid rain is no longer quite the issue it once was. And that then meant that all those nations most badly affected by the acid rain could set about replanting their forests. And this wasn't done for altruistic reasons, I have to say. It was done for the wood pulp industry, for the milk cartons and the newspapers. But even so, those industries have to function in a more sustainable manner nowadays. And it means that for every forest that's felled, another one has to be planted to replace it with. That means that in Europe at least, theoretically, there's always X amount of habitat available for wildlife. And this meant that all those nations who badly affected, well, I was saying they could replant their forests. Hang on, I just lost track of it. Where were they? So all those nations most badly affected could set about replanting. We put them out there for 6 weeks, put them in an aviary. On the release site, they all want them to live. Throw in something like a rabbit carcass once a day. They'll feed themselves, and by the time they're 12 weeks of age, they're fully grown and they're fully feathered. And it really is as good as that for owls and birds in general. And then you just take the aviary roof off and let them go. Now, because they've lived properly right in that aviary, as far as they're concerned, that's their home. And it gives you then a convenient place to supplement your feeding from a little bit 3 months after this season, and you should hopefully nurse them through that transitionary phase where you trial and error and teach yourself how to hunt. And hopefully at the end of the period, you can become fully independent wild eagle owl and create a whole list of species. So that as a rule of thumb applies to the eagle owl species as well. But that's the biggest success story in our conservation. If you haven't read that bird intensely, you may very well by now have been nothing more than a sad book you've got to read. And I hope you agree with me.
I mean, was in a puddle.
Bird just as a soft and mounted exhibit in the museum. Soft and mounted may well give you an impression of what it would have looked like once in life. Because you never know how it would have moved and what kind of noises it would have made. You can plenty both of it today. But that's the biggest success story in our conservation. If you like what you've seen in Perth here today, and you wish to help us, which I hope you do, because at the end of the day, whatever we have done in the past, whatever we do in the present, whatever we hope to do in the future, we can't do it without your help. You're the most important people here, because we're a registered